All right. I have a very special guest today on No Fear for our COVID Candid discussion here. I've got the I guess you're a legend now, Bobby Maximus, right?
Yeah, I think I hope so. Anyway, in my own mind, I am. Anyway,
Well, I mean, the way you post, I mean, you're very, very funny in your posts. You are so consistent with the wit and sarcasm, whether you're cooking a steak or launching some new like sport apparel line or whatever. So obviously this comes out of your brains. You don't have like a team doing that shit. You write all that stuff, right?
no, this is my wackiness. It's unloaded onto the Instagram.
It's crazy. So many of my followers will know who you are because you guys interviewed me, and you and Joe, and I shared that to my following. Most of my following are law enforcement, military, martial artists, CrossFitters, and so amazingly, that kind of covers almost all your career because you were a police officer from Canada, you fought in the UFC. You've been a martial artist, therefore for many, many years. And you've also got serious ties to functional fitness, some crazy stuff. So this particular talk is about I selected certain people who I follow online, and you're one of the people I follow, who, no matter what's going on in the world, has maintained a level of humor and positivity. And, even though there's a lot of humor in your posts and you're selling the idea of do the fucking work, be fit, be focused. It's inspiring and it's motivating. And we've had some very kind of personal talks offline just about shit and business and stuff like that, because this whole pandemic stuff is it introduces a different level of fear where, even though both of us are entrepreneurs and kind of work our asses off to provide for our families and our teams, there's still fear out there, with this. So my question for you on this, and I want to get you back on, and you don't have a choice. You don't have to answer yes or no. I want to get you back on the official No Fear program, where I want to talk about your fitness stuff, from CrossFit to Jim Jones, incidents as a police officer. And I'm kind of just teasing the audience listening to that, because you've got some amazing stories and experiences. And of course, then fighting in the UFC and then, your gym and all that. But we're not going to get into any of that shit today, unfortunately.
All right.
We're just what I want to talk to you is about how this lockdown impacted you, your family, and your business, because I'm blasting these out to people, trying to provide them tidbits and rays of, I hate the word hope, but rays of hope, because a lot of people are still fucking scared as we have different states messing around with our ability to provide for our families and enjoy life. So first question for you is just, how are you doing through all of this?
I'm actually, I hate saying this. Actually, don't hate saying it because it's my own doing, but I am great. I don't think I've ever been better.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because this isolation, or I'll let you explain, but I'm guessing this isolation has allowed you to get super razor sharp focused on very specific things.
To a degree, yes, but through a combination of experiences I've had in my life and a couple of lessons my dad taught me, one being a very hard lesson, and I'll use his words exactly: shit can always get worse.
Wow.
So no matter what, I've been through a lot in my life. No matter what, I always have this attitude of like, be grateful for what you have. And as bad as you think you have it, shit can always get worse. I've done a lot of work with tier 1 military assets. And one of the guys that I became close to has a saying, at least no one's shooting at me.
Right.
All right. Like, you know what I mean? So I try to take every situation and look at the positive side of it, because otherwise you can go crazy and put yourself in a psychological downward spiral of doom and gloom, which doesn't help a situation.
Right. I'm going to talk a little bit about that lately, what I did this week, because you live. Can we talk about where you live, or is it a secret location?
Nope. You can talk about where I live.
You're an underground bunker somewhere, right?
Somewhere, northern Canada by the North
right,
Pole. But,
right.
yeah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Utah, nice, beautiful area. How's your family doing with all this?
They're really good. My kids don't really know any better that much. I mean, I've got
How old are they?
the baby and a 3-year-old. They're just living life.
Yeah.
And my 11-year-old, he gets it, but he's wildly influenced by the media. So one day he thinks COVID is a fake disease and it's not real and it's made up by the government. And he told me a story about how it's some bank in Switzerland that's tried to reset the global economy. And I'm like, you're on another planet or
he's
something.
11 and he's that's amazing.
He's 11. And then on the other hand, he doesn't think we should go out because it's bad. So he swings wildly day to day.
That's funny. That's an interesting, you should do some sort of post, some social experiment post on this, because like, here's an 11-year-old like that really is covering both spectrums, right?
Oh, yeah, he's off. But he's a really, he's wickedly smart and he's also wickedly sensitive. And so he's good. He's all right. He gets what's going on. He'll handle his business. I've always told Lisa, if something happens to me, he knows all the passwords. He knows how to get in the websites.
It's crazy.
He knows where the bodies are buried. He's like, just ask him. He'll take care of it.
Nice. So how has, and I think the, your dad's expression, you should turn into find a way to turn it into a t-shirt.
Yeah. It's true though, right? Like it can always get worse. You know, you could be a cop and pinned down with gunfire and bemoaning your situation. It could be worse. You might not have any bullets.
Right.
Like, you know, stuff can go bad in a hurry. So one of the things that I try to do is any situation that's thrown my way, I let it sit for a minute and then let's figure out the best way to deal with this and be positive about it, because being negative doesn't help anybody.
Great advice. Very. And it's such a simple and obvious answer, but most of us dwell on the negativity. And that's, that's we talked at length when you interviewed me. That's one of the catalysts to a fear spike that puts you into a non-clinical anxiety type state, right? Doubt becomes hesitation becomes fixation becomes anxiety. Now you're in the fear loop. And you do that by focusing on the negative. That's what conjures up that holy shit movie in my mind. I'm fucked, right? So interesting.
But I want to add to that. I think what people downplay is how important experience is to that whole, how you integrate the fear loop. Because if you've been through hell and back numerous times, stuff affects you a lot less. You have a unique way to put stuff in perspective.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of the things that's so, I just answered an email earlier where, someone wanted to know what was the difference between our online 2-hour Essentials of Personal Safety course and the No Fear online, which is 97 minutes. And, it was a really simple answer. Is like the No Fear program is understanding a system of formula that teaches you how to look at fear, but you still need to, you still need to do the reps. If you don't know how to look, like facing your fear and going through it, doing the research, doing the rep, whether it's getting in the octagon, jumping out of an airplane, handling your business. If it's the first time it's happened, it's rep 1, and so you need to find a system to practice courage, which is when I get a fear spike and I get scared and I want to avoid shit, how do I stop that there, right? And so this whole idea of practicing courage is about doing these reps. So 100% agree with you. Experience, right? I have an old High Gear t-shirt, high gear's high gear, my suit, right? But it said experience is something you get shortly after you need it. Experience is something you get shortly after you need it. And pretty funny story. I remember, you remember Dan Severn, of course.
Yep.
So I was hanging out with Severn years ago, and he's telling me the story about after he got choked out by Hoist in that long fight, right? And many people listening to this will remember this, but he's there and it's like, okay, Hoist is going to lose. And people who understood grappling, and not a lot did back then, didn't understand how he was setting up the triangle choke, right? And can you show the audience the shirt you happen to be wearing right now? Maybe that shirt auto-suggested me to remember the story. But Dan's up in the room after getting choked out, but he's like a wrestling guy. He has no idea what a carotid restraint is and blood flow to the whole, and of course that comes in from behind you, like if you don't understand it, right? So you're there going, oh, I'm gonna fuck this guy up, and next thing you know, like the planet Earth starts to compress on you, and things start to go a little hazy and then dark, and then you're like, what the fuck, in the tunnel, right? And so there's a guy there going, Dan's like, fuck, I thought I had him, I don't know. And the guy says, hey, he caught you with a triangle choke. And Dan says, what's a triangle choke? He goes, oh, it's this, you wrap the leg, it's this figure four, and it hits the carotid. And he's like, I don't know. He says, let me show it to you. And he gets on the ground, and this, if you read it coming on, it's pretty easy to counter. Yep. I mean, it depends who, but it's pretty easy. It's fucking chest with muscles, right? And so the guy who's showing him the triangle choke says, check this out. He goes, all you had to do is post with here and then walk around the guy with your legs here, and it'll open up this. And he says, see how easy that is to get out? And Severn, who's doing it on the floor, pops out of it. And the guy goes, see how easy that was? And Dan looks at him and goes, where the fuck were you an hour ago?
Yeah. Right.
And I love sharing that story. Is that experience is something you get shortly after you need it.
Yep.
Dig it, man. How has this whole thing, sorry for hijacking the call, but your shirt and talking about that. How has pandemic, lockdown, COVID-19 affected your business? And more specifically, have you had to do anything to adapt?
Yeah. So a couple things. About 3 years ago, I started making decisions that I didn't want to be locked down. I'll call it, in business terms, over leveraged. I didn't want to have a facility that I was paying $10,000 a month to in rent. I wanted to be free to move laterally. I think that's really important. A lot of people paint themselves into a corner where there's only one way out. It's kind of like in a fight, in a boxing match. I don't want to be with my back in a corner with Mike Tyson in front of me, because no matter which way I move, I'm eating a hard punch. I want to be in the middle of the ring where I can move around. Sure. So I've kind of adapted that to my business. So I've got the online portion and I've got the in-person portion, but I hadn't overly committed to either. So it's allowed me the flexibility, or this word people are throwing around, to pivot right into the online space without a gun being put to my head of a huge overhead to pay, hours to be accountable for, things like that. Where I have had to adapt is my present plans being pushed all to online training, and then my future plans. I don't want to be a negative person, but I don't think we're going to be out of this for 2 to 3 years. Wow. And so I am preparing for the worst. I'm assuming I'll never sell another gym membership again. I'm assuming I'll never do a face-to-face seminar again. I'm assuming that I'll never be allowed to leave my basement. So I'm figuring out how to build my business under that premise. Now, if the worst case scenario comes to fruition, I'm going to be just fine. If this goes away in a month and it was all for nothing, all I've done is built myself another revenue stream, and then I can refocus on all those other things.
Nice. Do you really, it's interesting you said that, because if you had been a fly on my wall about 2 weeks ago, I had a couple of business meetings with my team, and I said to them, let's pretend this is never changing. Yep. What do we have to do to make everything virtual, or digital? And so interesting. Also interesting that we're both Canadian and so smart.
Yeah, well, Canada's ahead of the times. I'll actually tell you a story about my mother. My mother works for Telehealth. Telehealth it's Canadian 911 over the phone.
Okay.
So you're sick, you call into Telehealth. Hey, my kid has a fever of 101. Here are the symptoms. What do I do? You get advice from a nurse or a doctor, and you're done. She's been working there like 9 years now, maybe 10 years. Canada's been ahead of the curve. Funny now in the United States, with the advent of COVID, they're trying to rush and catch up. And we just had a pediatrician's appointment over FaceTime the other day, and they're trying to rush to catch up. Canada's had this developed for years. They're not even missing a beat. You can call in with your COVID symptoms from home, and they'll
Medicare.
Yeah,
was a great thing. I mean, I lived in Canada for most of my life. I think I moved out when I was 48. So, interesting. Okay, back to, so, what you said there was a little disturbing and depressing. When you said, I don't see us getting out of this for 2 to 3 years, was that your warrior entrepreneur going, let's pretend this is happening and friggin' reverse engineer the solution? Or do you really feel that?
No, it's there's part of that's my warrior spirit, but the other part is there's one person I can trust and rely on in the world. You know who that is? Right here, me. Because I know I'm the only one who can deal with my best interests. That's a fact, right? And so the reality is I've seen people in very important situations. I'm bringing this from my police career. People who are highly trained panic and fall apart under the first instance of stress. And what I'm seeing right now is we have a government that one day they're worried about people dying, the next day they're worried about the economy. One day they're worried about dying, one day they're worried about the economy. So we're living in this no man's land of what I call inaction. And I firmly believe that whatever course of action you take, you just have to go for it with ruthless intent, even if it's the wrong plan. If you impose your will hard enough, it will probably work. So let's look around the world. New Zealand destroyed COVID in under a month because when the World Health Organization stuff came out, they were on top of this. I think it was January 27th. They shut their whole shit down for a month. You weren't allowed to go outside and breathe. You weren't allowed to make eye contact with other people. They eradicated, shut their borders, they're done. Now they have a rule. You go to fly in New Zealand, you're facing an automatic 14-day quarantine in like a government hotel. You're done. They've killed it. We've waffled so many times back and forth that I don't think anyone has the political will in this country to go one direction and stick with it. So I think we got two choices. We go herd mentality and let it wash over and deal with the collateral damage, or we shut down hard for a month. But I'm talking a hard shutdown, Tony, not this I'm allowed to go to the grocery store stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think there's a political will in this country to do one of those two things. And so we're going to walk in the middle. And when you do that, it's going to take forever to deal with this.
That's interesting. I think they've gone too long to even do the hard shutdown now. I think there's been so much. You got 30 million people out of work, people freaking out, starting to get riots, starting to get not riots, but protests, and that was crazy. I mean, and I mean, in my talks with your son, which is where I get all of my vetted information from, he sends me an email, kind of a digest every day of what's going on around the world. But it's just, you can't get any good information. And that's one of the questions that I'm going to have for you in a minute. What's been the best thing about the lockdown? You already touched on that, but is there one thing that jumps out of you, the best thing about the lockdown?
For me, it's actually sleep. Because about 6 months ago, I was trying to simultaneously build up my online business and build up my gym business.
Mm,
A lot of effort in that regard.
right.
And the gym business required me to be at the gym at 6 a.m, which meant I was waking up at 5:30 and trying to go to bed early and do all these things and fit stuff in my day. I don't do that anymore. I haven't woken up to an alarm clock in 10 weeks. I feel superhuman right now.
Wow. Awesome.
So I'm going into my work now turbocharged,
Right.
which is really important. I go to bed when I go to bed, and I wake up when my body wants to wake up, and it's my batteries are filled. That's the best thing that's happened.
Nice. Nice. Worst thing about the lockdown.
Man. Esoterically, I feel terrible for a lot of people who have lost their jobs and don't have the means or the will or the training to get themselves out of a hole. I really feel for people. It simultaneously makes me feel grateful for where I am.
Sure.
But my heart hurts for a lot of humanity right now. And it hurts that no one seems to have a real plan of action to get us out of this. We need real leadership right now, and it doesn't seem we're getting it. And that's not critical of any one person or even a political party. It's just we're torn. Like our government, the Democrats and Republicans, they're fighting over stimulus packages. Like, no, guys, we got to fucking work together. Like this is where we need somebody to step in and say, no. Here's what's happening. Believe in me. Trust in me. This is what we're doing. And we just don't have that. So I can't imagine what it's like to be furloughed, laid off, whatever it is, and be at home and not knowing how the hell you're going to get back to work. That's really bad.
I agree, man. Heavy answer. Appreciate that. Aside from talking to your son to get information, where are you getting information? How are you verifying?
I don't know if you can. Like here's the deal. I've often watched BBC News. The reason I watch the BBC News about what's going on in America is because there's no paid ads, there's no political axe to grind. They're just like, this happened today in the US, and they move on. So you tend to get a straight story.
Right.
When you're in the United States, if you watch CNN or NBC, you get one story. You watch Fox, you get another story. And then the truth is probably in between.
Or not even. Right.
You know, I actually try to avoid the news as much as possible and live in a bubble and just worry about what I need to worry about. Because when all these things are coming in, it affects my focus. It's kind of like being in a fight. Don't be paying attention to the people in the front row of the crowd when you got some guy across the ring from you trying to knock your head off.
Right.
I just feel like government's going to do what the government's got to do, and I got to look after me.
I dig it. Great answer, man. Great answer. What bothers you the most? You kind of answered this, but I throw it out there because it's a lot of times when I'm asking these questions, something comes up and then you peel the onion a little bit deeper and it gets a little bit more clarity and a deeper thought crystallizes. What bothers you the most about what's going on?
People's reactions to it. The people know better. Here's the thing. Like, people are succumbing to fear. They're succumbing to their negative voices, their own self-limiting beliefs, but we all know better. And that's what bothers me the most. Like, sometimes I picture my dad grabbing me by like the collar and just saying, give your head a damn shake. You know what I mean? I think people need to be, there's a scene in a movie where a dude's freaking out and his partner slaps him.
Right.
That's what I want to do to people. Like, get a hold of yourself.
Right.
So people's reactions to this stuff. And the other thing is what I call the gross naivete of people. Like, there are people who really believe, people who I thought were my friends, who say, well, we're going to open for business in a week and everything's going to go right back to normal. And I want to say, are you fucking stupid? Like, you really think we're going to open for business in a week and life's just going to magically return to pre-COVID times? I have a hard time believing people are that naive.
Do you, it'd be interesting to microscopically interpret what people are thinking. You know, it's this idea of, you know, for some people, this is just a shitty flu. For other people, it's a death warrant, you know, or death sentence. And you don't know till it hits you, right? You got to go through that.
No, but here's my thing. Let's say the government just says, we're going to just open up for business tomorrow. Everything's back on the table. Do what you want when you want. I can promise you 40 to 50% of this people in this nation,
right,
they're still not going to go to restaurants. They're not going to go to gyms. They're not going to do these other things. Life is fundamentally going to change.
Yeah.
How we know it. The best example of that, a 75,000 square foot super gym opened in Georgia. Opened for business. All these people crying at home how they don't have a gym membership. You know how many people showed up day one, Tony? 75 for a 70. They had 1,000 square feet each. That's bigger than most people's living space. And business is not going back to normal because, you know, you talk about fear a lot, but people now forever will have fear.
Yeah. And it's interesting how much of this is, and I'm just, you know, I'm not necessarily sharing my personal beliefs, more just being devil's advocate and creating a conversation. You know, you look at all the people that are, you know, sharing all the other statistics of how many people die from the flu, even though there's a vaccine, and so on and so forth. And how much of this is just, instead of us calling this another shitty strain of the flu, be careful out there. Like, had that been the message in January, it got its own name, COVID-19, which sounds way more scary than the flu, you know, right? And statistically, people say it's got that 99% recovery rate, you know, for most people. And how much of it, the problems that we're facing was just the manipulation of the media, and then how the media just bombarded us.
But I want to put some personal responsibility on some people. Mm-hmm. How you respond to the media. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram. The problem is you and how you interpret this stuff. Facebook, and people like to talk about the evils of the media or the evils of social media, whatever. You still have to assimilate that information. Now, I'll give you an example with what I call blue-collar Italian salt-of-the-earth mentality. I call my Italian grandma. She's 91. What's going on, Grandma? I wanted to talk to you. She goes, why are you calling me? Well, Grandma, I really wanted to talk. Like, I'm worried about this COVID thing. She goes, I survived the death of your father. I survived living with you. I survived dealing with your mother. And she goes, I survived having my bowels blow up. She had to get like a major surgery, her bowels taken out 2 years ago. She goes, first of all, you wouldn't put a pillow over my face, and I'll never forgive you for it. Because she asked me when I came in to visit her, wow. She goes, oh, Roberto, I'm so happy to see you. Kill me. I'm done. What? She goes, I'm not going to live like this. Anyway, she pulled through. She's fine. She said COVID's got nothing on her. She goes, if it's my time to go, it'll take me fast, which is what I've always wanted. I'm like, holy shit, all right. This is what happens when you move from Italy to Canada, and most of your life you grow up on a dirt floor because you can't afford shit. You handle your business.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a great story, actual and metaphorically.
She got no chill. She just is like, quit your damn crying.
She's a killer. I love it.
Yeah, this is what you do when you are an Italian immigrant and you had to work for everything. You know, it's funny. I asked her, she's like a hero to me because she helped raise me and stuff, and she's always been in my corner. And I asked her why they settled in Cape Real, Ontario, which is in the middle of nowhere, and it's god awful cold. She goes, it seemed like it was a good spot to get off the train.
Huh.
They're offering jobs at the railway. It seemed good. Fuck, okay. And they made it work. You know what I mean? And you know Northern Ontario, like it's minus 40 in the damn wintertime.
Yeah.
It's just you make it work. So her attitude is she's like, yeah, I'm good.
It's such a good point. Such a great story, man. And I'm just tripping out on it. But it's so true. And this, I wanted to share this happened to me. I'm kind of like you, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in business for freaking, 40 years, and I do shit and I make shit happen. And I've had people try to steal my company. I've had people steal my IP. I've had people steal the copy of my high gear. I've dealt with like my business doing $12 million one day and then 0 3 days later because of a deal my COO did behind my back that like crazy shit where, I look at this goes back to you in the early part of our conversation where you said, if you have that experience, right, in life, you just go like, okay, let's do it. It could get worse. And a couple of times with my wife, I said, we've been through way worse than whatever this is, and in terms of the stress and fear and anxiety and whatever. But this week I started binging on the frickin' news, political news, Twitter, not Facebook, following legit politicians and reading stuff and reading articles. And a couple of good friends of mine who live up in LA, hit me up. They said, hey, Newsom just extended this to August, and then you've got like, they go, this is our doctor for the health. I don't know if you've seen a picture of her, she looks like a Walking Dead extra. I mean, just, but she's not even a doctor. She's a doctor of sociology. And, and I'm like, how does like a politician and a doctor of psychology decide in 3 months we're going to lift this? Like, and it's LA. Like, and what happened was it caught me off guard, but I don't do business. I don't have a gym, right? All of my stuff is traveling to places and all that. But for some reason when that happened, and a couple of my friends who I knew were getting hit hard, it became really personal. I got angry and I started consuming and reading. And I did this to the point where, to your point, in the last few days have not been sleeping well. I've been angry. I haven't been focused. And it's because if this was a nutrition metaphor and I showed you my diet, you go, dude, you're eating fucking shit. No wonder you're thinking shit.
I'm going to give you a piece of advice, a fighting piece of advice. It's going to help you that helped me. I had the opportunity to train with a guy named Sean Tompkins for a lot of years. He's the one that got me in the UFC. Sean died a number of years ago. Yeah. Sean died a number of years ago, but great fighter. And I got KO'd by a Taekwondo guy in a world championship kickboxing fight. And I was distraught because this Taekwondo guy was doing all this weird shit. Hook kicks, fucking back kicks, weird ass shit. And I got mesmerized by the outside noise and I got KO'd. Sean pulled me aside. He goes, the next time you fight one of these fucking Wang Chung fucking karate guys, he goes, just go straight down the middle and punch him in the face. I'm like, what? He goes, don't worry about all the spinny bullshit, everything they're doing. You go straight forward and punch him in the face. And that's the advice for this is like, stop worrying about what Twitter says, what Facebook says. You know what you have to do. Put your head down and get it done. Cut right through the middle of the storm. Stop trying to get all distracted. Yeah. Which in fighting, it's a good, it's a good thing. Like when someone throws a spinning back fist, walk straight into them. Stop like trying to duck and move and dip and dodge and dive and all that shit. You know what you have to do. Take care of it. And so back to what we were talking about, I don't care what Governor Newsom says. We're going to be open in August. I don't trust that. We might not be open until December. Right. I know I'm Tony Blauer. I know how to make my business work online, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just blinders on, head down, and I'm going to work.
I love it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, coach.
You're welcome. I mean, it's
So
really
true.
important because even like any, I worked in the Toronto Police Training Department for a little bit. And when any scenario came to our desk that we had to adjudicate for like use of force options and things like that, people get so distracted by the noise. Like, so you're face to face with a person with a knife in a house and you're worried about the crying baby in the bedroom. The crying baby in the bedroom does not matter right now. Right. You need to deal with the immediate. People get so distracted by outside threats. Worry about what's right.
Especially these days in the way society is shaped and evolved. But that's very, very sage advice. Okay. Without making this political, if I put you in charge, what would you do? How would you handle this?
People aren't going to like this answer. You're going to be locked down for 30 days. You're not even going to the grocery store. You are going to get your food delivered to you, and you are going to stay the fuck inside. Number 2, I'm pushing pause on all mortgage payments, credit card payments, and bills. All these companies that I've been giving tax breaks to all these years, you're going to pay up now because you owe me. There's no more mortgages, no more credit card bills. Pardon?
I love number 2.
I'm going to take care. I'm just going to push pause on the whole fucking thing. I'm going to make sure, and Canada actually did this, I'm going to make sure every household gets a certain amount of money to live so they can afford their groceries and stuff like that. And then third, I'm shutting all the borders down. If anyone, nobody fucking leaves and nobody comes in. That's it. You are stuck. If there's an emergency situation that you have to come in, it's going to be understood. You're going into a government institution for 14 days in a full-on quarantine before we can let you through this border. And I'll snuff this thing out. It takes 14 days for COVID to run its course. I'll snuff this thing out in 15. I'll give us another 15 as grace period, and we are back into business.
Damn. Bobby Maximus for president.
Yeah, I mean, that's what needs to be done. You know what I mean? And the pushing pause on the whole system is an interesting idea. Because I'm going to go all these hedge fund guys that own these mortgages, and I'm going to say, you know what? Boo-hoo, you're not making money for a month. Deal with it.
Yeah, they won't even notice it.
Pause. No one's paying any bills. In that way, it takes away all the panic for the economy, the whole deal.
Yeah, I don't know why no one's done that yet. Just ridiculous. You've already answered this before, but I ask it again. Almost like, and the way I frame it on other calls is, we've had this talk, but a lot of this talk, you're on a Zoom call, you're being interviewed on a podcast. So now the podcast is over and you're sitting with your dog and a beer and a glass of wine, and you look over and you go, you know what the most challenging thing has been? And is there something that you haven't talked about? What is the most challenging thing for you going through this?
Oh man, to be sensitive to other people, because sometimes I feel like when I tell people how great I'm doing and I have this positive mentality, it actually brings them down. Like my job is to fill them with hope by leading by example, but they actually feel worse about themselves.
Right.
So the biggest challenge is being sympathetic to other people's needs and understanding that they are hurting and they are in fear and that my experience is not their experience. So it's hard to empathize sometimes because I'm just get off your ass and do something about it type guy.
Right.
But the back to my plan, do you know why that really works? Because it would eradicate fear and people would feel safe to go out after this 30 days was over. The problem with what we're doing right now is people are going to be filled with fear type behavior for the next 2 years. So the challenging part is to be more sympathetic to other people, and to try to support them more by being empathetic.
I love it. Okay, man, this was great. A lot of very interesting stuff here. Final message for anybody listening about life, fear, mindset. I mean, you hit so many good things, but
so I'm going to give you just a little history lesson here, Tony. A lot of people don't know. I was bullied pretty heavily till I was 15, 16 years old. Getting punched in the face on the bus every day. Kids drawing shit on my face with marker, wedging me, pulling my underwear out. I got beat up by some bullies, got my collarbone broken. When you're laying there and your collarbone's broken and you're scared, you learn some shit. My dad died when I was 20 years old. Changed my whole life. And I went from a kid that was doing all right to like I didn't know what I was going to do. My dad was my best friend. A couple months after that, I'd actually kind of quit wrestling. A good buddy of mine sat me down. I don't know if I ever told you the story before. Takes me to lunch. Looks me in the eye. He goes, boo-hoo, your fucking dad died. Grow up about it and get back to wrestling practice. You go, what? He goes, you can't bring him back. You need to help us win a national championship. Get your shit right. We need you. You do not get to be selfish. People are relying on you. Fuck.
Wow.
You ain't wrong. I fucking came back. I've been through a divorce. I've been through a career-ending injury. It didn't end my career, by the way. A year and a half ago, I had a really bad illness. I was literally sleeping in the bathtub naked every night so I could just wake up and turn the water on and wash blood and shit off myself. I thought I was going to die at points.
Jesus.
You go through some shit. And by the way, I haven't even talked to you about life and death situations I've been in policing because I've been in a couple. You go through enough shit, you learn that, like my daddy says, shit can always get worse. You know what I mean? So you just lost your job in COVID and you're just panicked and you're upset and your wife leaves you. And then your kid gets COVID and he's one of the ones that takes it hard and dies. Holy shit. Like, I can keep just adding on to your life of bad scenarios. So what you need to do if you're listening, I get it. It's bad, but you know what? It sucks for everybody. Rather than focus on the negative, focus on the positive and focus on finding a way out. I always say this. It's one of my Sunday sermons. The only way out is through. You can't stick your head in the sand. You can't run for cover. You need to handle your business. And so that's where you got to drive straight through the storm. And if more people would do that, there is such solace, even if you're doing the wrong thing, in taking control of your situation versus hoping and praying and hiding under the bed like a scared little kid. You know, actually, one more story for you. Last night, my little dude, he's 3. He comes down to the basement because I sleep in the basement. And he just starts screaming, Dad, help! Dad, help! I wake up, what the fuck? I go in. He's standing in the middle of a dark room, screaming. Picked him up, brought him to my bed. We were good. All that dude had to do is something he's done the last 30 nights in a row is just walk into my bedroom and he would have been out of that pain. Instead, he succumbed to the fear and he just sat in the dark room and screamed. That's not helping anybody, dude. Get a plan. So I had a little talk with him about it.
Boo-hoo.
So listen, I actually talked to him like an adult. His name's Jax. I go, Jax, I know the dark is scary. The next time you're in the dark, just look for the light and walk towards it.
Nice.
That's it. Just do that. Like, why are you standing in the dark screaming? And that's what a bunch of grown-ass men are doing. They're acting like a 3-year-old standing in the dark screaming when they should just go exactly where they need to go.
Dude, that was good. Nice sermon.
Yeah, it's the truth, Tony. Like, and by the way, he's walked to that room 30 fucking times in a row. Like the last 30 nights, the way to go there. But he allowed himself to get paralyzed by fear.
I love it, man. We're going to have fun on the next podcast where we can just talk for an hour or two, just all the stories. So we'll do that. We'll do that soon. We'll do that after COVID in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it'll be like the way we're going, like 2024. And by the way, here's the other thing, and I'm going to let you in some real doom and gloom. You think this is the first disease or the last disease that's coming our way. man, with biological warfare, with the what let me ask you a question, because you're Canadian. With global warming, if you believe in that stuff, what happens when the Arctic melts? What kind of fucking prehistoric diseases is that shit going to unleash? You know, I feel like
these are supposed to be uplifting interviews.
You know, I feel like, Tony, I feel like we got our zombie apocalypse practice and we failed miserably.
Right.
We just failed the zombie apocalypse on the easiest setting possible.
This is a test of the emergency broadcast system, and we flunked.
Yeah, we got something that is, you know, like the flu, and we failed bad. What happens if we have to deal with another bubonic plague?
Craziness.
You know what I mean? So let's look on the bright side. Let's hope we're learning our lesson from this.
Shit can always be
worse.
Love it. What's the best way to find you? People listening to this, they either love you or hate you right now.
They probably hate me. They like, you know what? People don't like hearing what they don't want to. But at Bobby Maximus, you can find me everywhere. If you just go to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or just Google Bobby Maximus, the Google machine.
I'll put your links in too.
It just gets everywhere. Luckily, Bobby Maximus is a unique once in a lifetime name. So you will find me if you just
Google it.
Bobby Maximus.
And I'll
and rumor has it, I cannot confirm or deny this, that if you go into a dark room and say Bobby Maximus into the mirror 3 times, he will appear behind you.
Wow. People are going to be trying that all over the world.
Yeah, don't. You know, I'll tell you, have you ever seen the Candyman?
No.
It's this movie about that where kids say Candyman in the mirror and the Candyman comes behind them and murders them. It's one of the most terrifying horror films I've ever seen. And I'm not scared of much. And my little kid, my 11-year-old, goes, "Hey, Dad, do you want to do the Candyman challenge?" What? He goes, "There's a Candyman challenge on TikTok. You go into the bathroom, turn off the lights, and say Candyman." I go, "Fuck no, I want no part of that."
Just in case. Just in case.
Nope. Just in case. He's like, "Dad, well, it's like a joke." It's like, I'm like, "No, dude, it is not a joke." So
you got scarred as a kid.
Yeah, this weekend I might make him watch Candyman and he will get scarred too.
Nice. Well, film his reaction to that and talk to me about that. Okay, man, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time. Very, very insightful. Hopefully for some of you, very inspiring. For the rest of you, you just turned off the lights and you're screaming in the dark. But
like my 3-year-old.
You know what the remedy is.
Yep.
Dude, be safe out there. I'll speak to you soon.
For sure.
Take care.